happy to have you here. And I know it's difficult after eating a big lunch, and that was delicious. So thank you all. Before we dive in, I just want you all to know I have some material here, if you want it, or if you think somebody else would need it. One is a stewardship resource catalog. This is a catalog that has stuff for old and young and in between, books you can order, pins, just different things related to stewardship. Okay, here is what we call a quick start guide to stewardship. Whether you're the treasurer of your church or if you're the stewardship director of your church has something like that, it's a good way to get the stewardship program going. Often, when it comes to church, stewardship becomes the appeal for offering. That's it. But stewardship is so much more. And even that offering call, it's a part of worship. And we should do it with excellence. But if you're anything like me, we can get into ruts and just doing things the same old, same old. So if you want to think of some creative ideas or some resources as well, think about getting this. As you all know, I work in the planned giving and trust services department. To me, I see it all under the umbrella of stewardship. Stewardship is what you do with what you have while you're living, whether it's your money or your talents or your time or your testimony, whatever you have. Stewardship is what you do with that while you're living and what you leave behind. We were not created, none of us, to deal with death. God did not create us that way. However, we're on this conveyor belt, all of us, and unless Jesus comes first, we will leave something behind. Hopefully, by far, it's an overpowering impression that we love Jesus and we made a difference for him. And no matter what, I would suggest that to have a will and or a trust is very important. The conference can help you out. We can provide financial support for wills that are made. We can give advice. We can give information. We are not lawyers. We are not financial advisors. We are not senior care attorneys, but we are I am certified. And so I can, if nothing else, help you ask the questions that you need to get answered. And so I have information over here, whether you need it or not. You don't know what you need until you know what's out there. So I would encourage you to take some of this information and begin to learn about it if you don't know about it. I was recently at my mother's house. I grew up in that farmhouse in Kentucky, and today her home in Florida, she has this cast iron skillet. I love that skillet. My life is wrapped up in that skillet. So when I was home, I said, Mommy, I call her Mommy. She'll always be my mommy. Mommy, can I have that skillet someday? You know what she said? She said, no. She said, your sister has already asked for it, and I told her she could have it. Finished. I'll never covet. I'll never want it. It's done. Mama said it. And if Mama said it, that's the way it goes. I'm telling you, you will protect your family if you decide what happens with what you leave behind. It's good stewardship. Now, your family might end up squabbling no matter what. But if you don't designate, the government comes in and designates for you. And nothing, not a penny, whether it's $20 or $20,000, will be left for the charity of your choice. If you don't have it written down and legalized. So yes, we invite people to think of leaving a monetary gift for the church when they pass. However, What's most important is that they leave a legacy, a memory of a warm heart for God and family. That is why when this lady came to me and said, I don't want to leave, I want to leave everything for the church. I don't want to leave anything for my kids. None of them are living the lives they should. Blah. She says, I just want to leave it all to the church. I said, I believe you should trump their rebellion with the gift of unconditional love so that they will always forever have positive memories. I also know that when I was in China, I was overseeing Adventist mission and development. Development was basically putting China on the map of people's minds so they could pray for kingdom growth in China. So I would send out emails, newsletters. I had a closed Facebook page where I was always sharing about China. Now, you might say, Audrey, why weren't you asking for money? Because we needed money to support global mission pioneer teams going into unentered cities in China. We had 70 cities with a population between 500,000 and 8 million without a single Adventist presence. Can you imagine that? So, yes. So I would tell stories from China. And my idea was once again to put China on the map of people's minds. Well, I received from Gospel Outreach, it's a supporting ministry out in Walla Walla. I received a note one day from Gospel Outreach, an email from Lois. And Lois said, Audrey, somebody has left $100,000 to help support global mission pioneers, teams of two, whether it's husband and wife or two gentlemen and two ladies, teams of two going into unentered cities to grow God's kingdom. And I never knew where it came from. But fast forward, I moved to this conference and they asked me, it was a surprise, but they asked me to serve in the Planned Giving and Trust Services department. And one day my assistant, April Montoya, she was my assistant back then, she said to me, Audrey, did you get that $100,000 that came from here? I said, no. She goes, no, we sent $100,000. I said, well, for the past 10 years, I had my fingers on every penny that came into China, knowing exactly where it went and providing accountability that it went for God's mission. And nobody gave $100,000. So she went and she pulled out a file, and there was a note that said, we hope we know this money will be used to grow God's kingdom in China. Lois. So Lois, this woman out in Gospel Outreach, had received $100,000 from somebody in this conference, restricted for use in China. So it didn't come from Southern England Conference. It came from a person here that sent it to Gospel Outreach, who sent it to China. And what an amazing thing. She left a legacy. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, because I know I was there, that there will be hundreds, thousands of people in the kingdom because of the gift that she made. The point is not the amount of money. The point is that she stewarded what she had and made a decided decision that it would go for kingdom growth. Had she not made that decision, that chunk of change would have gone to something the government decided. My point is you never know the difference that your gifts will make, whether it's tithes and offerings. I call it the ripple effect that goes into the kingdom. So it's good to think about what we don't like to think about, but it's a reality unless Jesus comes first. So over here, I have information about an IRA, about charitable gift annuities, about stocks. Do you need a will or a trust? And maybe you don't need it, or just about creating a will. Maybe you don't need it, or maybe you don't know what you need or don't need. But I would encourage you to grab information and just start reading. And I also have my card, and I love to help answer questions. Just recently, I had a situation where somebody passed away, and they had not updated their will. They had not kept their will up to date, because you can update a will. And because of not updating it, funds were going to somebody that had been a part of their life, an ex-spouse, many, many years before. And it was causing a lot of tension. Anyway, we are happy to help you with your journey on that and invite you to leave something for kingdom growth. However, what's most important is that you are engaged with the legacy that you leave, especially if you have children, because part of a will be to establish a guardianship for your children should something happen to you. And so if you have children or grandchildren that have kids, a will is important. I knew of a lady that was a grandmother, but when her child died, her daughter, the daughter said, I want my mom to take care of these kids. She did not want them to go to her ex-spouse for very, very good reasons. Well, grandma died and had not made a will. So those kids went right back to their father. A very, very sad situation. Anyway, enough of that. So I want to invite you to get information over here. You also received a handout, a flyer. It's like a bulletin insert. It's just a little reminder before you go home and throw it away. Read it and say, maybe I should do something with this. That's what I do. I take information and then I look at it and I decide whether I need to file it here or there. But it's food for thought. And also you received a handout about tithe and about stewardship. We have more of these, so if you wanted some for your church, I'm happy to share. However, I'm no longer just sending stuff out to be put in lobbies. Why? When I first got here and end of 2022, for 2023, I sent out information that was specifically allocated, designated for the year 2023 in the offering calendar. Well, I am seeing in a few churches, stacks of those still there. So I want to send you and give you what you want, what you need, and be a good steward of the resources I have. But I would invite you with these cards, even if it's for your own personal devotion. Read through the verses, the comments. If it's for a prayer meeting, if it's for a Bible study group with some friends, just go over it. And something that you and I have gotten used to, if we have been Christians or church members all along, we all need a refresher. Something occurred to me the other day. I was down in Florida visiting my mom, the one who would not give me her frying pan. I'm kidding. No, I'm over it, really. And there was a car accident nearby, and 3 young people died. And I didn't know them. I didn't see anything. I didn't actually read it in the news. I just heard about it. But it crushed me. My heart wept at the thought. Then I read a passage about the crucifixion of Jesus. And I went right through it, on to the next verse. And I realized how easily we become calloused to that which we know and are familiar with. My heart broke over 3 people I'd never met, not related, just hearsay, family members talking about it. More so than my heart broke when I read that passage about Jesus' crucifixion. I'm not being hard on myself, but I'm here to say that every day we have the opportunity to learn and relearn and realize that this old world will desensitize us. So we have to engage deliberately with those things that we know. So I'm going to give you all a booklet. You are not allowed to open it, okay? You can't open it or I'll take it away and you'll get a 0. Now, by the way, these books are also yours. The content of this book, I could do 4 1-hour seminars, but we're going to condense it to about an hour today. And I want you to have this booklet to take home and once again use it for family worship or devotional, and just use the material you get as a platform, as a launching pad to ask questions, to learn, to reconnect with Jesus, whatever. But anyway, I'm still being a very hard teacher. Do not open the booklet until the bell goes ding. Sure. Okay, you'll get a 0. That's 4. Everybody should have a pen, right? Before, don't open it. Don't open it. You have to wait. So, Grateful Living. What you have on the screen is basically this book that I'm giving you, just another visual reinforcement. My friends, stewardship is about living gratefully. It's about saying, what I've got, I'm going to be grateful for it, even the trials, even the difficulties, because they give us calluses, maybe they give us muscle to deal with what we don't know is yet to come. Ultimately, like Carolyn said, the best is yet to come. No matter what we face, we will have heartache. So we all have the best to look forward to. I do want to say that the Southern New England Conference has resources. How many of you have looked at the Southern New England Conference website ever? Okay, it's sneconline.org, and there's a tab called Ministries. And if you do the drop down menu, you'll see all the different departments. One of them is stewardship, one of them is planned giving and trust services, a lot of information for you. And also, here are some resources right here if you want to look into where the money goes. I feel like it's important for our members to know where the money goes. I feel like it's important to be transparent, to disclose. I think the church should be able to look at the church books anytime. However, we need to maintain confidentiality for individuals with their giving. But if I gave $20 for green curtains, then you need to honor that request. But if for some reason we have to go with red, which is perfect, then I feel that as a church, as a family, you should come to me and say, Audrey, look at this palette. Green does not go. Green is green. We need to go with red. So your $20 that you gave towards that, can we use it towards this? My friends, when I was in China and overseeing development, I was sure to communicate because I told the story, invited people to pray, and people contacted me. What do you need? What do you need? And in no time, we were bringing in $1 million a year to go for kingdom growth in China. Why? Because people felt respected. They've trusted. So we need to make sure that at the local level. Now, the first book I read when I got into fundraising was It's Not Your Parents' Offering Plate. It's a weird title. But the point was, it is not your parents' offering plate, because when my parents sat in the pew and the offering plate went by, everybody gave. That's just what you do. You give. Now we say, I don't like that the general conference this, so we don't give. Or we say, I don't like my pastor, so we do this. Or we say, I believe in that ministry, even though it's not Adventist, I don't want to give to, okay? We need to be mindful that giving is a decision. And I believe there are times when we give just because of faith and obedience. However, we need to, as church members, provide and require accountability. That is very, very important. It builds trust. It's a different age now than it was 20, 30 years ago. It's the age of information. You can find out about anything you want. How many of you use Chat GPT? Oh my. Chat GPT is amazing. You can't believe everything it says, but you can believe most of it. And it's pretty impressive. Anyway, so I want you to know that there are resources and I want you to ask questions. If you ask a question and I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer, but I'll look for it. Yes. Yes, there's one of those brochures that says, what's the difference between a will and a trust? And it might just give you enough information to give you more questions, but my number is on that, so you can call me. Okay. So here we are with resources, and I want to ask you, what kind of a steward are you? Are you a happy steward? Just in general. Are you a I wonder what's happening with this. Are you skeptical? Are you they did what? I'm so discouraged. Or you're like, I am angry. So this is what kind of a steward are you? Are you a numb steward that you're giving out of habit and have no feeling, no recognition, no and I think good habits are good. But when a habit is meaningless, when it comes to your relationship with God, it's time to rework it and time to relaunch it, to recalibrate. So what we're going to do is not yet, but you have your pens ready and you're going to open your books, not yet. When the bell goes ding, you're going to open to page 2 and you're going to do a word search. Okay? Ding ding ding, you can start and it's on page 2. And if you find all the words in the word search, stand. Okay? But ding, 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 it's time to go. You look for the words, circle them on your paper. You can take this book home, so it doesn't matter. Okay, time is about up. You have 30 more seconds. And this is a take home test, so you can take it home. Did you get them all? Okay, beep. Okay, so we have one that's done. Okay, so you will get a prize, sir. Hold on. Okay, so we have three people that have finished them all. Okay, so I'm going to give you, sir, a prize, and this is called Hearts of Faith. Do you know David Trim? He's a research statistician at the GC. This, huh? Oh, he's got big hair, man. And he talks with a strong British accent. He always wears a vest. He is a card. I just love him. But he wrote this book on Adventist history. It's got great stories. And he signed the book, actually. So this is worth more than you think. So this is for you. His report? Oh, he's just excellent. Yeah. Okay. And I actually have another one of these books to give away, even though you all didn't score high enough. This lady, right? Your name again? Yeah. Donna, you're a fairly new Adventist, right? The cool thing is we have a lot of history in this church. And so I'm going to give you a book because you're on the learning curve about understanding more about your heritage. So here you go. You're welcome. And then I have another gift, and this is a book called This Life of Mine, and it's got little prompts all through it to write things down about your life. For example, this section says our engagement story. This one says a childhood memory that stands out. So you're not having to write a book, but it prompts you to fill in the blanks because it's fun to recall and fun for other people to have this. So I thought, I'm not sure, but my guess is you might be the oldest one in here, right? So I'm going to give you one of these books. So maybe in your free time you can start writing in a little bit about who you are. You're sorry, yeah. 97. That's amazing. That's amazing. Don't forget, when you're little, the halves count. I'm 4.5. I have a granddaughter who's 5.5. And when you're 97, that half counts for sure. I'm honored to meet you. My mother is married to the oldest man I know, and he's 94. And so today you're the most wise woman I know. Yes, she is. All righty. So tell me about this crossword puzzle. What might you notice in it? Yeah, the word search, excuse me. I I want you to see that it's random. The words here come from all over, like well, money, and then you have friends, and then you have telephone and health. They cover everything, and that is what stewardship does. Stewardship is that umbrella I mentioned that covers everything. And if you look at these two banners, when we steward our lives, whether we steward them well or poorly, we make a difference at home, in our neighborhood, across the country, and around the world. Because with God's gifts, we can grow his kingdom. And likewise, in relationship to the legacy giving, we can make a difference with our will or trust, charitable gift, annuities, endowment. So let's look at page 3. go to page 3. And it talks about stewardship, a biblical perspective. For start, what did I miss something back here? Oh, ding ding. Yes. Okay. So stewardship is not even a word that relates only to money. Who are the first stewards? Adam and Eve. Now, was there a currency money exchange back in their day? No, not at all. And in fact, stewardship existed before sin ever showed up. So that is just, I'm just going to zoom through this. That's something we need to realize. And it's not shameful to think about stewardship. When I first got here, somebody came to me knowing that I was the new stewardship director for the conference. And they said, Audrey, didn't you know that stewardship is a bad word? Just because money is so private or we don't talk about it. But I just want to say, if you're not putting money under the umbrella of how God wants you to steward your life, you are, and I'm speaking very generally, you are negating God's creative powers. You are putting your money outside and above God, which in my estimation is a form of idolatry. Idolatry is when we put anything before God. So if I am looking at anything and not seeing it through God's eyes, I am basically saying, I am God of my life in this area. I tell a story, and this what happens in the Bella Rica church stays in the Bella Rica church. In the 80s, I was a good kid. I was a doctor's daughter. People thought I was a pastor's kid. I guess I just seemed really holy or something, but I wasn't. The 80s rock and roll was the best. And I enjoyed my 80s rock and roll. Now I stayed away from the Black Sabbath, the heavy metal and all that. But I still know some of those songs from the 80s. And I'm thinking, wow, how did I let those words come into my head? You see, what I did was on Sabbath, I listened to Sabbath music, the Messiah, the Heritage Singers, Gaither, hymns, very good about that. But when the sun went down on Saturday night, time to listen to the radio again. I did not allow my music and what went into my head to be filtered through God glasses. And stewardship is when we put everything through those glasses. Then I met this guy, Bob, my husband. He is not a saint, but back then, he's a normal guy like the rest of us. But he listened to music that had some life to it, but it was all Christian contemporary. So all the words that went into his mind 7 days a week were good, holistic, pure. He was stewarding what went into his brain 24/7, where I was being choosy. And I'm just saying, don't we do that in many areas? We say, okay, I've returned my 10%. I've given something to offering. Now the rest of the money is mine. Or I go to church on Sabbath. The rest of the time is mine. So I give examples not to incriminate myself, but to invite all of us to realize that it's natural to not engage in thinking holistically about stewardship. And where do you go in society to hear how to steward what you have in a Christian way? Where do you go? If you walk through the mall, if you do Amazon, I go to malls, I go to Amazon. Let me ask you, where? The Bible. What about your children, your grandchildren, your friends? I got this letter not too long ago. Dear Audrey, how are you today? I'm sure you're doing well because you're an amazing lady. You have so much going on for yourself, blah, 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 blah. Then it said, if you want even more friends, a better life, blah, blah, blah. Just open up this credit card and your life will be complete. You see, we are getting messages everywhere we go that are counter biblical principles on holistic stewardship. Where do we go? Where does that grandchild that you see once every 3 weeks get their messages? Your niece, nephew. Consider that you might be that person, not to preach down at them, but to give them a little bit of spiritual food so the Holy Spirit can run with it and do amazing things. So when you look at the Bible, we're on page 4, we have some biblical role models of good stewards. And we think of people like Noah, like Joseph, like Ruth, like Esther, the Samaritan woman. And Noah, it seems like he stewarded his gift. He must have been a good builder, an engineer or something. On page 4. What about Joseph? Joseph stewarded his position well. He was positioned because of hard times at the right hand of Pharaoh. Same with Esther. Poor little orphan girl gets taken in. It would probably be called human trafficking today. She ends up in the king's palaces. She stewarded her position very well. Then I look at the Samaritan woman. What did she steward? How did she steward the gospel? She was the what? Town crier? I've not heard that expression. Yeah, no, it's good. What does that mean? You mean she was the one that? Yes, she proclaimed her message. Do you and I have a message? What are we doing with it? We touched on that this morning. What are we doing with the message? You know the story of the lady that had the issue of blood? She was bleeding. Finally, she got in that crowd and she touched the hem of Jesus's garment. Did Jesus know who did it? Of course he did. Did he protect her and just keep walking? What did he do? He called her out, made her speak, made her identify publicly what God had done for her. Now, I'm not telling any of you to get on Facebook and write every detail of your life out, but I would suggest to you that stewardship also has to do with stewarding our testimony. And there's a whole section in this book where you work on your testimony. And don't just tell it the most boring, quick way. Do it with pizzazz. You don't have to have been on drugs and homeless, living under a bridge in New York to have a fabulous testimony. But whatever, I should say to have a fabulous, no matter who you are, you have a testimony. And if you want people to buy into, to listen to, learn how to share your testimony in a way that will catch the ear of the person you're sharing with. And then look for opportunities to share it. We are stewards of our testimony. On page 5, we have different Bible verses about the heart of a steward. And we're not going to take the time to look at them, but maybe you at home with your worship or with your small group, you can dive into it. Stewardship is all heart. And if our hearts are in the wrong place, we are like Ananias and Sapphira that are hanging on. And the story in Luke or Acts is pretty graphic. I think it's R-rated. I wouldn't read it to my kids when they were going to bed, but it says basically the wages of sin is death. It's accelerated judgment is what I like to call it. It's accelerated judgment where you see, boom, boom, exactly the consequences. Let's go to page 6. These are just some fun statements by people out there, including Oprah Winfrey, that talks about the importance of gratitude. Secularist, atheist, medical science informs us that gratitude is healthy. If you put certain probes on your skull and measure the brain waves, or measure hormonal releases, things are better when we think positively. How many of you wake up every morning and say, ah, another day? Yippee! When I was in high school, I went to a boarding academy, and my roommate, I drove her crazy apparently. Because Audrey, you were always waking up so happy and yay, here we go into another day. My husband would probably not accuse me of that. And so I think, where is my mind? Where is my thinking? How can I cultivate an attitude of gratitude? And I suggest to you that the place to start is realizing that you, each one of us in this room, were created in God's image. God had you in mind. And there are two stories of creation right there in Genesis. There's the one where God is the big God, woof, and it happens. First day, second day, Thursday, the third day just goes through. And then there's a little recap, Genesis 2, where God breathes, he kisses life into the body. That is what God is doing for you and me. He's a close God. He's amazing. He can move the stars, hang them in their place, but he's also a God that formed me, who breathes life. He's close. He's intimate. And so that is, when I think of that, that places me in an attitude of gratitude. If you look on page 7, you can fill in the blanks later for spiritual benefits of giving thanks. Now let's go to page 8. Let's read that together. Nothing tends more. Are you got it on page 8? It's that big blue page. There you go. No problem. Nothing tends more to promote health of body and of soul than does a spirit of gratitude and praise. It is a positive duty to resist melancholy, disconnected thoughts and feelings, as much a duty as it is to pray. Boop. Wow, that's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it? Okay, let's go on. If we are heaven bound, how can we go as a band of mourners, groaning and complaining all along the way to our Father's house? Those professed Christians who constantly complain and who seem to think that cheerfulness and happiness are a sin do not have genuine religion. Ouch. Pretty much that's what do we call a zinger? It's a zinger. Okay, on page 9, write a prayer. My husband and I, when we left to go over China the last time in 2013, I thought we'd be gone just a couple years. We put some stuff in stores, like some memorabilia, something. Well, we ended up out there 10 years. And when we came back, we got all that stuff out of storage, and I started going through my stuff. I found a letter that my dad had written me in 1985. And as I read that letter, my mind was refreshed at who he was. He was comical. He cared. Yes, I did. Of course I did. He said, Audrey, is that Dean letting you have time to call home when you need, or are they so ridiculously strict that they limit when you can call home? Why did he say that? Because I'd called in tears once, and I was homesick. I was in Newbold in England going to school, and they were home in Kentucky. By the way, Audrey, I couldn't find Jersey the other day. That was a cow. I couldn't find her. I kept hearing her mooing, but I couldn't find her. I thought maybe it was the wind, but finally I found her down in a hole. And he wanted to share the farm life trivia with me. By the way, Audrey, did you ever find that adapter so you can use your blow dryer? I didn't realize, or I would have helped you in advance, take a proper adapter over. If you need to go buy one, don't worry. If you need to buy a blow dryer, don't worry. I'll send you the money. Anyway, as I read that letter, I got to know my father all over again. And I'm sad that that letter was tucked away for so long. And we all have a letter that God has written us. So on page 9, you have a small opportunity to write a letter to God, just telling him what you're thankful for. And I would invite you to do that in the quiet of your home with some nice music playing, or the birds, maybe a cup of hot tea or something. Um, it's precious to God when we steward our time and share with him. Now, if we go on to page 10, you're going to take a little quiz here. And if you get one answer right, the first one, you'll get all the answers right, because we can fill it in with who our creator is, who is our sustainer, who is our redeemer, who rewards us, etc. Now on page 11, we're getting into the T's. We've all heard about the T's. It was mentioned today during the offering call. The T's of stewardship: time, temple, talents, treasure. Now we've heard all those, but then we dive into trust. What do you put your trust in? Your retirement account? You preach it, sister. Yeah. There you go. And then what are you doing with your theology? Your head knowledge. Well, there's this thing called cultural Christianity, where you do things and you think you do life because that's the way you do it. Like the Jews were guilty of that. Some of them, not all of them, I'm sure. I mean, Paul was a Jew. Wow, but look where he had to go through a little bit of a deconstructing before he could reconstruct and be who he wanted to be. But I feel like sometimes we have our theology as Seventh-day Adventists. We've got it. We've got the news. We've got the biblical truths. We've got the proof texts, and all that is beautiful. But if it's not being fleshed out, if we're not living the theology, if we're not actualizing what we know here, we are not stewarding what we know. So stewardship even applies to our theology. What about our testimony? We kind of touched on that a little bit ago. We need to steward our testimony. And this is where, speaking of testimonies, you're invited to create your own testimony and even practice it with a friend or with a spouse. Hi, my name is Audrey, and I've always been an Adventist, and I married a pastor, and now I'm working at the Southern New England Conference. That's my testimony. Wow, thank you. I want to be just like you when I grow up, right? No, we can. You were telling me that you like to add the details to the story. You know, sometimes you can get lost in the details. So when you have your testimony, add those details, but make it short and concise. You might have time to sit down and go into all the details, but that testimony, when you're at the grocery store line, oh, there's nobody behind me. She looks pretty miserable. I do see a cross on her necklace. I'm going to launch into my testimony, and you've got it. It's a 2-minute zinger, and she's going to walk away and say, I remember that lady. And then when you leave her that glow track, she's going to say, I'm not going to throw this away because this came from somebody with a testimony. So anyway, stewardship is all encompassing. Now let's turn on over to page 15. Now, I have made a focus since I've been here to rebuild stewardship, we're on page 15, to be a heart issue, not a give money issue. However, like I mentioned, we would be remiss if we did that acknowledge that money is a main tripper upper. Money can mess all of us up. And in fact, I was with a great group of kids. We were in Hong Kong, and I had some family members over there that were young kids traveling with a bunch of other young kids. And they sat, and I pulled out our little table. Our table we had bought from an Indian family. Okay, because it was like Facebook Marketplace. So when we moved back, we went and we bought a table from an Indian family, and that table, my whole house smelled like Indian food for about a month. That was proof that it had been in that Indian over. I love Indian food. Anyway, so I'm just thinking about that table. Anyway, we pulled it to its full length. So there are about 12 kids sitting around, college kids. You know what they talked about the whole time? Pardon? The table. Indian food. No, no, by then it had worn off. They talked about how much money they would make and what they were going to do with it and how early they wanted to retire. And these were good kids. I heard nothing about God's calling. I heard nothing about ministry. I heard nothing about sharing the gospel. I heard nothing about helping those in need. Well, it's what society teaches us. And we have a responsibility in our church to speak to the elephant in the room. And I will tell you that our pastors my husband is a pastor. My two sons are both pastors. And it's a difficult thing in the American culture to talk money to somebody. I have some pastors in our conference from other cultures. And before they go visit a member, they're going to get the church treasury books and they're going to go to John's house. I'm using a non-cultural specific name. They're going to go to John's house and say, John, according to our records, you make $5,000 a year. Now, we know you make more than that, but based on your tithe, you make $5,000 a year. And they will speak directly to the elephant in the room. Most pastors will not do that. And I am not saying that they should. But what I am saying is we need to be talking money, because money is the root of, yeah. I mean, hey, I used to think that the love of money, I used to think that it was love that made the world go round, but it's love and money. It really is, especially in our culture today. So if you ever do a Google search, how many times is money mentioned in the Bible? How many times does Jesus talk about money? What percentage of Jesus's parables involve money? So I think we're blind if we don't acknowledge that. If ever we needed to talk about money, now is the time. Page 19. What page did we jump to? 15. Oh, sorry. So I'm bleeding into this portion where we do talk about money, and let's go to page 16, and it talks about getting practical. For example, how would we match up the things on the left column with the bullet points above? For example, the last one under narrow vision of Christian stewardship says it's all for now, earthly possessions. It's all for now, earthly possession. And I would say that the broad vision of Christian stewardship, if I go up to the bullet points, I could put in the intangible, eternity. That's the broad vision of Christian stewardship. It's about what what won't burn someday. It's about yeah. So, and I'm not saying we don't need a refrigerator or a car, but let's just keep our stewardship glasses on. Anyway, that's a little puzzle there. And then there are practical tips for Christians, financial tips. What I would say to this church, if you want to be relevant to your community, have a money management seminar. Even for your own members, have money management seminar, helping how to get out of debt. I don't know if you've heard of Ramsey. Okay. Ramsey is a Christian, and he teaches Christian principles. I personally don't like him. I mean, I like his content. It's excellent. But sometimes he comes across as, I don't know, doesn't come across really humble to me. He's like, you do this and you will get rich. You see, I have this many cars, so will you. And my feeling is if you got your debts paid off and you got that much money, you only need one car. Be buying cars and giving them away to people that need them. He didn't ask me for my opinion, and so I haven't told him. I'm just telling you all. But he has got Dave Ramsey, excellent content. I would invite you to personally just look at his principles on the internet, to do a seminar for your church. The Southern New England Conference, if you who have a Dave Ramsey seminar, it's 9 series of 9 meetings for the church. If any of your members attend 7 out of the 9, then the conference will reimburse a third of the cost. Last time I checked, it was about $90. And so let's say the member would pay 30, the church might subsidize by 30, and the conference by 30. It's our way of saying we believe in getting out of debt. We believe in making healthy financial decisions. So let's go to, we're going to zip on back quickly as we start winding things up. And please feel free to go through every page and look at the title and the Bible verses. And as you go through it, prayerfully say, God, what do you want from me? And he might say, I appreciate exactly what you're doing with your money. Keep it that way. But with your time, please watch 1 hour less of TV a day and spend an hour in praying for the members of your church family. In prayer this morning, were you going by the names of the members? Who? Beautiful.
And we shortened it because I still have to read my list.
See, I say that is good stewardship. You were given names. What are you doing with those names? That's stewardship. My mom is 80, almost 86, and her husband is 94. And she said, Audrey, I just feel like I'm not doing anything anymore. I just don't have the energy, but I want to do so much more. I feel so worthless. She and her husband spend at least an hour every morning and an hour every night praying for family and beyond, depending on the time. And I'm like, Mommy, there's nothing more valuable than what you're doing. Anyway, so I want to just take a minute to invite you all to look at page 25, and you can fill in the blanks here. Tithe is what % of our income? Okay, you fill that in, okay? And that's a biblical principle that bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. And the Seventh-day Adventist Church for many, many years, and under the guidance of Mrs. White, has designated that storehouse to be the conference office. So bring ye all the tithes. And that's why the tithes go to the conference office. And the tithes are different than offerings. And just as I believe your church needs to be accountable and transparent with the money, hold your conference to accountability as well. No, but I can give you the treasurer's phone number. And well, and I know it's a sore spot, but our ABC has closed. And some people are like, oh, and this community has been through so much. But after you lose 1 million plus, it was not fun for my husband to have to come in and address that, or whoever to do it. He didn't do it alone. There was a finance committee that he pulled together. But the fact is, we need to be reevaluating what we're doing with our money. And what we did was we looked at who's buying from the ABC. I did. I bought, this is what I mainly bought. The dried dill weed is very inexpensive at there compared to in the grocery store. So I'd buy bags of dried dill weed, and I would buy nutritional yeast. So I am a lifelong lifer of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I am buying my nutritional yeast and my dried dill weed. I think my church should spend however many millions that we lost in that ABC and put it into reaching people that don't know Jesus, to putting pastors in unentered areas. And nothing wrong with ABCs, but across the North American division, we're having to close them. And when we closed, we said, everything's on sale. Guess what did not disappear? The books. All the books. People are getting that because even with it on sale, they can get it cheaper from Amazon or online. Yeah. Anyway, what my point is I believe in investing even when you don't get a monetary return. Okay, like let's say we put money into something and it doesn't generate money. That doesn't mean we shouldn't invest in it. But is it making a difference for kingdom growth? And the ABC was making a difference for me with my popcorn. I love popcorn with olive oil and salt and dillweed and nutritional yeast, extra virgin olive oil. And then I add cayenne pepper to mine. My husband doesn't, but I do. It is so good. So do I need that, or should I maybe do without nutritional yeast and dillweed? We need to be thinking about what our church does, just as we're accountable. We are there for each other. That's why there's community. That's why there's unity, to help each other be all we can be. So let's look at the page 26 when it comes to tithe. Do you know where your tithe goes? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay, approximately, that first blank, approximately 78% of SNEC's tithe stays right here at the local conference. It's redistributed. You might send in $10, another church $5, and another church $25. But that funding comes in and it's redistributed through the conference to support pastors' salaries, to support different ministries. We had a church in Walla Walla that had 3,000 members when we were Upper Columbia Conference, when Bob was president there. And they called Bob. They said, look at our tithe. We're giving so much money. We want 2 more pastors. And Bob said, no, your tithe is allowing us to hire pastors in areas that are dark, where we have no Adventists. We are planting churches and putting pastors there. You already have 8 pastors. You don't need 2 more, even if you have all this money, So anyway, that's the beauty of our system, is the tithe goes in. A pastor of 4 church districts makes no more than the pastor of 1 church who has 500 members in it. You need to know that your church takes the money and distributes it equally. So if you go to the first blank, that blank percent of SNEC ministry pastors, 46% of tithe of that 78% that stays here. You got that? The top blank is 78%. The first bullet point is 46%. 46 covers pastor salaries, benefits. It helps cover the cost of a ministry like camp meeting, church planting. It helps with the Adventist retirement benefits. It helps support with Camp Winnipeg, certain ministry functions there. So the second bullet point is, yes. Okay, that no longer exists. But for many, many years, like for me, if I'm going to have anything in retirement, it's because I take it out of my paycheck and put it there. But for many, many years, the church now the church will do a matching like most businesses, or so, up to a percentage, but only up to it's like 2 or 3%. If I put in X percent, then they'll put in X percent. But it used to be that all the retirement for a pastor was put in by the church, but that quit many years ago. And most conferences, 90% engaged in that. So my husband, based on the previous system that stopped however many years ago, will get $300 in retirement a year. If he doesn't put more in on his own, that's what he'll get when he retires, is $300 a month. So it is funding. Yeah, that is no longer, we're no longer feeding it, but we eventually, when all the pastors that had something when they pass away, if Jesus doesn't come anymore, no money will go into that anymore. Yeah. You had a question? It might be. I don't know. I'm just talking about the Southern New England Conference. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah, yeah. And in fact, the Northern New England, no, the regional conference here, they stuck by the old program. They chose not to go to the new program. So, but that doesn't affect us. Okay. So that's where. So good question. And please ask your questions. And maybe you're going to get home and like, that doesn't make sense. You can email me. You've got my card up here. Okay. Um, the first bullet is 46%. The second bullet is 16%. The third bullet is 14%. And the last bullet is 2%. And you can read through the details later. So the very last blank, approximately 22%. Okay, so 78% stays in our conference. Then 22% goes beyond our conference to help support gospel ministry in the North American division and around the world. So the Southern New England Conference helped Bob and me when we were missionaries in China for 18 years. Some of the money that went beyond the conference, the 22%, some of it allowed us to eat rice as often as we needed in China. Okay? And this is important, whoever makes the offering calls, to share with your members what happens with the money. Why? Because it becomes personal. It becomes personal to know what's happening with my money because people are giving. But if they're not giving here, they're going to be giving somewhere else. There are a lot of people that are smart with their taxes. They're going to give just enough so it'll help them with their taxes. You know, when I went to, I don't know if you all were at camp meeting, not this past time, but Selah was a group that sang the last Saturday night of our camp meeting. They did a beautiful job. But I was so frustrated because every it seems like every other minute, every other song they were stopping and promoting this program that they encouraged for us supporting a child abroad, a needy child abroad. I'm all for supporting kids, right? And being and charity. But I was there to listen to a concert. I wanted music. And they would go on and they would show a picture of a kid and they would then at the end they said, if you want to sign up for a kid, go over to Bailey, which is one of the buildings on our conference office grounds, and you can sign up for your own kid. Guess what I did? I went over and signed up for a kid. I know his name. His picture's on my refrigerator. He sends me thank you notes. I send him a gift at Christmas time. Why? Because they communicated with me what my money would do. Now, and it wasn't just the one and done. He'll say, thank you for the $20 gift. I was able to buy a new pair of shoes for school. Now I have one pair of shoes for school and one pair for church. This is a picture of the backpack that your monthly donation bought for Sam. You see, communicating makes a difference. And we need to remember that every dollar that comes in is donation. And people are not obligated to donate. But we want to invite people to be a part of something so big, so huge, and that is kingdom growth. And it took money for Bob and me to live in China for 18 years. And I know God used this. I don't know to what extent that remains until heaven. We are all just links in a chain, right? But it takes financial support. So with that 22% at the very bottom, just FYI for your information, 9% stays at the Atlantic Union Conference, and 13% goes to the General Conference and the NAD, North American Division. Now, you might be saying, well, what is the Atlantic Union Conference doing with my money? Well, the Atlantic Union Conference, AUC, closed. So why do I want to give them my money? What I want to say is we need to do a better job at communicating what the dollars do. For example, with all these evangelistic series that took place with Pentecost 25, the 150 plus we had in our conference, every one of them, the union put $3,000 into. They help sponsor events like our youth congresses, and they are blessing us. And we need to be engaged to invite more accountability. Or maybe we need to read our newsletters that come in, you know? Sometimes it's not always the other guy's fault that we don't know what we know. Hey, I can tell you, I haven't listened to the news in the past few days. Whose fault is that? Mine. I'm not going to blame the US government for not informing me. It's out there. Now, what version? I don't know which one I should go to anymore. But anyway, so you get my drift. And then there are offerings. Friends, offerings are different than tithes. Your tithes do not help with the light bill in your church. Your offerings do not help cover the salaries of our pastors across the conference. So they're two different things. And one thing I've done is recently a study for all our churches on the giving trends. I did one for this church. So your pastor should have a copy of it. And your elders, if they came to the Elder Summit. You're in Central Mass, right? So your summit is coming up into December. Oh, you're in Eastern? Oh, were you there? Then you didn't get it. Otherwise, I had one for you. Sorry. If you want it, you can email me and I'll send it to you. But what it is, it's giving trends that identifies the membership and how it correlates with the tithe coming in, with the offering coming in. It identifies the giving per unit. So I had a pastor come up to me and he said, I mean, the graph looked good, going up, up, up. But the giving trend, the giving per member was going down, down, down. But he's like, but that's okay. You have new members that maybe we're discipling them on giving. That's okay. We just look at the trends and understand it. But he said, look, I'm doing very well. I said, yes, if the average income for your members is $2,000 a year, you know. So according to the trends and the statistics, there were some faithful givers or some people that gave high dollar amounts. Because if you calculate it out, you could see that even with that, not every member even made half of what poverty wages are, you know. So the giving trends allow us to understand, and the giving trends are not, it's not science, but it's for you to analyze. For example, we have a building project. The offering is going up, but the tithe is going down. What does that say? That says people are taking from their tithe and giving it to offering. Or there's a major crisis in some country, and that group of people, suddenly there's no offering or no tithe. Maybe they sent it back somewhere. Okay, so and I'm not here judging. I'm just saying, look at the giving trends. They will educate you on how you can disciple your members. One last story before we wrap up. I was at a stewardship conference once. This guy was an amazing preacher. You would all know his name. He's not from this conference, but amazing preacher. And he was talking stewardship about how, and now don't let this be personal because I don't know anybody's financial situation here. So don't not like me if somehow this touches a chord. Anyway, he goes on and on about how he and his wife were so poor. They were dirt poor. They didn't know where their next French fry was coming from. They were that poor, but they were always faithful with 10% tithe and 5% offering, no matter what. They were faithful. God had blessed them. They had kids. They had all these medical problems. But now they had a home in the mountains and a home on the lake. And they'd paid off all of them. And he had 5 of his favorite cars. And he was still giving 10% plus 5%. And everybody was like, amen, amen. I'm a little bit of a skeptic, but I kept my thoughts to myself. I thought, 10 plus 5? Why aren't you giving 10 plus 50? Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? My point is, Audrey, look at yourself. How many shoes do I have in my closet? Maybe not as many as you, or maybe a lot more. But the point is if I've got 1 pair of shoes, I've got way more than a lot of people do. Audrey, as a steward, it's not all about you or even your church. It is about God's mission. And in the Lord's Prayer, it talks about bringing heaven to earth, right? If I gave my extra shoes to those ladies there, I would be giving them a piece of heaven on earth. You see what I'm saying? We cannot prescribe for one another what giving looks like, but we can invite ourselves and others to process what God is calling us to do, to not get into the habits, of just doing it to feel like I've done my duty. No. It's a heart issue. So there we are on page 27. As you know, the first blank, 27 of the offerings in your church from Sabbath to Sabbath, 27 of them support your local church budget. And 12 of them go outside the conference. And I appreciated what I saw this morning. And I can't help but hear. But you told your membership here, Elder, where the offerings would go. And by policy, offerings go to the North American division has voted to follow the offering calendar. And the Southern New England Conference has voted to honor that, which means offerings that come in on certain days go to where the calendar specifies, unless a member identifies otherwise. So maybe the offering today is for North American Division Community Service. But I want to give some of that to my local conference because I know that Pastor Eves is going crazy with the We Care and making a difference in our conference. So I might put $50 in the offering. It'll go to the North American Division. But I'm going to specify in an envelope $50 for Southern New England ACS. So if you want to give offering in a way other than it is the designated offering for that Sabbath, that is God touching your heart. You just identify that. You just write it out. Does that make sense? Is that pretty clear? Some of of us don't understand that. Anyway, so let's turn over and here we have today the offering was for the conference advance. What is the conference advance? Do you know what that is? Well, now you know. The conference advance on page 28, 40% of it, if you gave $1 today, 40% goes towards evangelism. You see that first line. 30% will go towards the Worthy Student Fund, and 30% will go towards helping with capital building funds and all that. So it's prescribed, it's committed, it's been voted on. And this is, and if you're ever wondering and you don't know where your money is going, I want to invite you to ask, because that allows you to testify of how God is blessing you in your giving and your church in its giving. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, and there's more for your free reading and fun. Any questions before we close? I failed to pass this around. I have 2 clipboards. One says want to call, and everywhere I go, I leave this in case you have a question about where the money goes, about what is the difference between a will and a trust, or do you have any advice for this or that? And you don't write any details, but you'll get a call. I'm Audrey. Hey, Audrey. And we can chat for a while. I just love the personal touch, getting to know all of you. And then this one, I crossed that want to call. I didn't have any printed out, but I send out a newsletter once a month. The newsletter is usually just general conference information, whether it's about the camp or ACS or education, or it's a letter from the president or something from me about planned giving. But then there's all sorts of details that comes from a financial guru system that talks about basic things from investments to how to protect the elderly from falling, just has a variety of stuff. So I'm gonna actually, I'll just send them out here. There's one that says want to call, and the other one that says want to call with a line through it, and then in green above it says e-newsletter. So feel free to sign up for either one of them. Yes, sir. The 13th Sabbath offering. You know what? What page is that? What page?
27 to 29.
You know what? You have pointed out something that I need to add. The 13th Sabbath offerings are designated by the General Conference. And in the offering booklet that you have, and I posted online, and I'm getting ready to put out the one for 2026. It says what the 13th offering goes for. The 13th offering, Sabbath offering, is an extraordinary offering that goes towards something in the world church, voted by the world church. So, for example, when we were in China, one of the times the 13th Sabbath went towards planting a church and building a center of influence in one of our large unentered cities. So thank you for pointing that out, because definitely I didn't mention it here, but it is in the calendar of offerings. So thank you very much. Any other questions? You all have been fun, good to hang out with. And some of you with masks, if I ever see you, there you go. If I see you without your mask, I might not recognize you. No, God is good. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to meet one-on-one, or actually I'm speaking at a women's ministry group, and it's just, they have about 10, and we're going to get together and eat cookies and drink chamomile tea and talk about will planning and just educating, so always happy to connect with you all. So feel free to grab anything. Maybe you don't need it, but you can pass it on to somebody else. Or maybe it's just that pass you need to help get your mind going to make some decisions. So, all right. Yes, let's stand for, okay. Well, I'm happy to be here. And I've heard a lot. I remember when my husband first came to this church. It's the coolest church. And I'm so happy to be here. Now I can say, yeah, I was there too. Let's stand for prayer. Thank you, Father, for this Sabbath day. And even though it has been full, it has been a day that has been set aside for you. And please give us the rest we need. Lord, help us to lean into you and to steward our lives so that we make you smile. Lord, we don't need anybody's approval but your own. But give us wisdom. Lord, each one of us is affected by our families, by our culture, by the world we live in, but we want mostly to be affected by you, and we want to be willing to adapt and to change so we can best meet the people you place in our lives. Lord, that is stewardship. And we want to steward what we have, our lives well for you, so that someday when we see you, we will hear, and let's say it together, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Amen. Amen. All right. So good to be here with you all. And